As a follow-up to last week's video, here are even more films that are just begging for a Blu-ray restoration. Here's 5 overlooked films that need some 2K or 4K love. Meet the Applegates. Meet the Applegates is one of the most unusual ideas ever for a movie. In the not-too-distant future, the Brazilian rainforest is being torn down by loggers. A family of giant sentient cockroaches disguise themselves as human and move into the suburbs in Ohio. They look like praying mantises, but really, they're roaches. They're on a mission to infiltrate the humans with the intention of eventually causing a nuclear holocaust. This will wipe out humanity, and the roaches will survive to rule the earth. Meet the Applegates is something you'd expect from a low-budget direct-to-video film, not a $5 million budgeted movie from the director of The Truth About Cats and Dogs. Yes, the movie was a satirical black comedy from Michael Lehman, the director of Heathers. The movie stars Ed Begley Jr., Stockard Channing, and Dabney Coleman as Aunt Bee. Not a role I was expecting to see him in, honestly, but he plays it up incredibly well, and really earned whatever they paid him for the role. That's why he's one of the best character actors of all time. A good bit of the movie is about deforestation and the environment, which is most likely why Ed Begley Jr. took the role. He's been an environmental activist since the 70s. Although a black comedy about giant sentient insects might not be the film that gets people on board with your cause. The film was being made while the studio, New World Pictures, was going through some financial problems. New World was originally co-founded by Roger Corman in 1970, but he sold it to a group of producers in 1983. The company spread themselves too thin, which caused problems for Meet the Applegates. The film was finished in 1989, but due to New World's financial problems, it was shelved. It did, oddly enough, premiere in the Philippines in 1990. Then February 1st, 1991, it had a small theatrical run in the US. It opened in 155 theaters, pulling in about $500,000 in its very short run. The movie's wacky, and it's funny to see how these giant roaches start to fall victim to many human vices. The father's having an affair, the son becomes a stoner, and so on. I really don't want to think about the trauma the secretary will have after discovering she's been having sex with a giant cockroach. The movie was not released on DVD, but it was broadcast numerous times on various HD channels in 1080p. So it seems that a restored version of the movie exists, it's just never had a physical release beyond VHS. Meet the Applegates, sometimes listed as just the Applegates, is not available for streaming, but it is on YouTube. City Limits. In a post-apocalyptic future, 2 motorcycle gangs form an uneasy alliance to fight back against an evil corporation that's trying to take over their ruined city. The funny thing about the movie is it more or less predates the whole young adult style films by a few decades. In the future, a mysterious plague kills almost all adults, and so kids are left behind to rule the world. They grow up and naturally start biker gangs with cool masks. The cast has an interesting mix of actors. John Stockwell, Ray Don Chong, John Deal, and James Earl Jones as one of the few surviving adults. Dean Devlin, who would later become a fairly well-known director, had a small part here. The film was released into theaters on September 1st, 1985. It did okay, but gained way more attention on home video and cable. Although it gained the most attention on June 20th, 1982. When it was featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000, Season 4, Episode 3. If you saw the episode, you probably remember Crow sang a song professing his love to Kim Cattrall, who was later replaced by Estelle Winwood. Anyway, Kim Cattrall saw the episode and sent flowers to Crow. Not Trace, the actor, to Crow, the robot. Not sure if that was intentional or not, but it's still pretty funny on her part. The movie was released on DVD in 2007, but the quality looks like it's just a VHS transfer, which is really rotten because they're asking $25 for it. The raw movie is not available for streaming, but the Mystery Science Theater version is available on Tubi and Pluto. It's on YouTube, which is about the same quality as the DVD, which is to say, not the best. Asylum. Asylum's a 2008 horror film from director David R. Ellis. It's about a group of college kids that discover their dorm was once an asylum that used to conduct experiments on their patients in the 1930s. The movie stars Sarah Romer, who's an actress who's had consistent work but never really took off. She's been really good in everything I've seen her in. I'm not sure why she isn't better known. She's also in the very underappreciated comedy Fired Up, which thankfully did get a Blu-ray release. although make sure to see the unrated version, which has that old 90s comedy vibe. Don't watch the PG-13 version, it cuts all the best jokes. Anyway, Asylum was directed by David R. Ellis, who did Final Destination 2, Snakes on a Plane, and Shark Night. He was a stuntman turned director who worked on some major films. Personally, I think stuntmen make terrific action directors. Look at Hal Needham, Chad Stahelski, David Leitch, and Isaac Florentine. Ellis is no exception. Although his films generally skated the line of action, usually blending in another genre like horror. Asylum, though, is the only film in his catalog that's straight up horror. It's also, for some reason, his only film to go direct-to-video. In 2013, he was working on a remake of the anime Kite when he was discovered dead in his hotel room in South Africa where they were getting ready to start filming. While no cause of death was released, the police said there was no foul play. He was 60. The movie did get a DVD release, but it's out of print, and so you gotta go to eBay to get it. There is a copy on Amazon, but it's mashed on a triple bill with the Hills Have Eyes remake, which I really enjoy, and Hit and Run, which I haven't seen. So all three movies are pretty bad quality-wise. If you want to see the movie, you're better off getting a copy from eBay, where it's relatively cheap. The movie isn't available for streaming, but it is on video on demand. Some clips in the trailer are on YouTube, but not the whole movie. The Blood of Heroes. In the US, it was released as The Blood of Heroes, but outside of here, it's known as The Salute of the Jugger. This is another post-apocalyptic film, which I feel is one of the best-known ones, which is why I find it so odd that it's not on Blu-ray. Now, before you tell me that it's on Blu-ray in Japan, you are partially correct. The Japanese Blu-ray of The Salute of the Jugger is in 1080i, but it's just an upscale of a previous DVD full-frame transfer, which looks okay at best. On the plus side, the release does have both versions of the film, the US theatrical cut and the longer international cut. The movie's about a future where the world is a barren wasteland thanks to it being ravaged by wars in the 20th century. Life is hard, and the only enjoyment comes from a brutal sport called the game. The teams are called jugs, and they make a living by playing in the game where you risk your life every time you play. The movie stars Rutger Hauer, Joan Chen, Delroy Lindo, and Vincent D'Onofrio. This was the first and last feature directed by screenwriter David Webb Peoples. Peoples wrote the screenplay for Blade Runner, Leviathan, 12 Monkeys, Soldier, and Unforgiven. The Blood of Heroes was shot in Coober Pedy, Australia. I double-checked with an actual Australian, so if you complain that I'm saying it wrong, you're wrong. Anyway, Coober Pedy is known as the opal capital of the world. It's become a tourist destination due to the many opal mine locations that have been turned into things like underground hotels. The location was also featured in films like Pitch Black, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Red Planet, and recently the Mortal Kombat reboot. The movie was released in Australia on October 19, 1989, and then in the US on February 23, 1990. The film was released in the 90s on DVD as the theatrical cut in full frame. In the early 2000s, it was re-released as Salute of the Jugger, and it's the international cut, which runs 14 minutes longer. It's available for streaming on Plex and Roku. Pretty sure that's the US version. It's video on demand on YouTube. In Edwards, California, there's an event called Wasteland Weekend that started in 2010. It's an annual event that is essentially post-apocalyptic LARPing. They celebrate all things post-apocalyptic like Mad Max, Fallout, Wasteland, and so on. They also play a non-lethal version of Jugger. Breaking All the Rules. Breaking All the Rules is about two girls who meet two guys at an amusement park and fall in love on the last day of summer. They do this while escaping from three stupid jewel thieves who hid a priceless diamond in a stuffed animal prize. This was an American-Canadian co-production filmed in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Breaking All the Rules is one of the many teen rebellion comedies from the 80s. Although this one is a little different. While we largely had teen sex comedies where it was a guy trying to lose his virginity, in this it was a girl who was trying to lose her virginity. She does this by upping her sex appeal, by rebelling against her previously preppy look, and goes full-on, well, maybe not full-on punk, but full-on what a Hollywood executive in the 80s thought was punk. She's wearing some ripped up clothes and spikes her hair out. Honestly, it's the most ridiculous look, but the actress is so cute, she actually pulls it off. Although her hair changed a few times over the course of filming, with sometimes it looking longer or a different color. Whoops. It's probably really difficult to keep that look consistent over the shoot, which was more than likely a month. The movie's supposed to take place over a day. Also, her initial look is just a really bad wig. This was another film from New World Pictures, although this one was not too long after Corman sold it. The writer of the film, Rafael Zelinsky, said his script was a personal project, but due to the regime change at New World, they rewrote the script and changed it completely. He said his script was a sensitive coming-of-age movie, and they turned it into a silly comedy. It's a shame. I do enjoy the film, but I recognize that it's pretty dumb. Although beyond that, it's one of those magical time capsules of the 80s. The movie was frequently on HBO back in the 80s and made its way to VHS. It was released on DVD in the 90s, but it never went past that. I personally remember renting this solely because of the cover. This was Carolyn Dunn's debut film, and she completely sells it. She makes the whole thing so much more enjoyable because of her performance. She's the right amount of goofy, and you do fall in love with her despite the ridiculous hairdo. The film's not available for streaming, but surprisingly, it's on YouTube. I say surprisingly because there is some nudity, and we all know how much YouTube hates that, unless it's disguised as a tutorial on how to shave your vagina or nude yoga or something. There's another 5 films that need an upgrade. Each one of these feels like it should be a no-brainer for the various boutique Blu-ray shops. I'm hoping down the road I can look back on these and see how many of them have been restored. With the amount of films that have been released over the years, I have tons that I want to mention. But for that, you'll have to wait until the next time I do one of these. See you soon.
Oh, take me now, Dick. Slam it to me. Right here on the desk, Flutter.
Ride the baloney pony, baby. I'm gonna splay you like a Cornish game hen. Ooh, yeah.